Corner. Thanks for joining us for our second podcast from DesignCon 2023. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Niels Fache, who's the VP of Keysight's EDA division. I'm also joined with Stephen Slater, who's a project manager of Keysight's EDA. Particularly, you'll know this division to be part of their ADS offering as well as other Pathwave products. So gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm sure you're very busy. I've seen your big, glorious booth over there, and I know this is a big show for you.
Yes,
so
indeed.
Thanks for joining. Stephen, let's kick off with you. So the show's been underway for half a day or so. Tell us a little bit about what some of the highlights are that you're involved in and you're offering here at DesignCon.
Awesome. Yeah, to be honest, it's always like coming back and seeing friendly faces. So I'm just really happy to be back in person, seeing our customers. But the next thing is that my probably biggest highlight is we had a memory boot camp just yesterday. It was like 8 hours, full day on memory. And we did it with Ben Dannon from Northrop Grumman and Herman Ruckerbauer from I Know How. So we got some of the industry experts to provide their insights. And yeah, we looked at both simulation and how you go about measuring things like DDR5. So for me, that's a big show highlight.
I feel the same. It feels like a giant reunion, and COVID sort of killed our annual gathering, and it's always a highlight to get
Seems
together.
busy though, right? It does seem
busier. It feels like the old days, right?
Yes, yeah.
We're back to full force. So I feel the same as you. So we did a podcast not long ago talking about memory and some big strides that Keysight's been taking around DDR5 and compliance and all of that. So besides the boot camp, I know you guys have really become a leader in memory design, and so can you update us, since we did the last podcast and the offering, what are some updates you have around particularly the memory aspect of Keysight's business?
Yeah, so always the question is, well, where next? And we've been adding many different memory standards. So more recently there were things like HBM2 and 2E and 3. But actually now we're looking at things that are pre-standard. So looking at different types of modulation that might be required for DDR6 that may come. So that's actually what we're showing on the booth today. We're showing how you can do pathfinding, as it's called. So it's simulating with a bunch of different modulation standards and looking at the what-if trade-offs. How far can my traces go? How close can they be together? What are some of the design guidelines that I really need? So that's one of the things that we're doing for memory. The other thing that we're doing, which is kind of related, is high-speed serial. USB 4 version 2 has kind of been released as a standard. And so that's going to be like 80 gigabits per second now. So we're starting hearing customers thinking about how they're going to design this into the next products. So, I think out there we're probably, 6 months to a year away from actually seeing some real products in our hands that can do 80 gigabit per second. But what the physical layer for that, they went to PAM3 modulation. So that's what we've been demonstrating, is how you would simulate that and how Keysight actually provides a design kit. So you get kind of things like the reference channels, reference models, and in the future, not just yet, but very soon, you'll see that we'll have like a compliance flow for those types of standards as well. So that's things yet to come.
You guys are always way out there ahead of your skis, so to speak, but it's fun to see what's coming next.
Yes.
And it feels like we're basically nailing down bits of DDR5, and here we are talking about DDR6. It's amazing. So, Niels, you're the VP of Keysight EDA, so I imagine you see this whole, you have the oversight of so many pieces of Keysight's business in this area. And what would you say, as you look ahead, are sort of on your roadmap, and how you really make, I've been hearing two terms. One was from Matt Ozalis about shifting left.
Yes.
Right? So getting it more in that, instead of playing whack-a-mole after you finish the design and then respinning it, being able to do that virtually before you've committed a design and parts, especially with supply chain shortages. So what's coming next, and how are you enabling sort of that shift left and also the design for context idea that Keysight puts forward a lot.
Yeah, no, thanks Judy for the question, and thanks for the opportunity to be here and join your blog. So when you look at our booth here at DesignCon, we're talking about our design tools as Stephen just mentioned, but we also have our test equipment here. And so Keysight has this unique offering of design, simulation, and test capabilities. So we can work with our customers across an entire product development lifecycle, and that's quite unique. And so as an EDA business, we're actually very fortunate to be part of that larger company. And so to your comment about shift left, as our customers are working on new memory standards, design and simulation becomes crucial. They need these tools to model electrical effects, transmission effects, delays, reflections on their designs. They need to evaluate and optimize eye diagrams. They need to look at power distribution. And the more they can do that in the virtual domain, the better. And so that they can really reduce the time they will spend with physical prototypes. And we all know that's time consuming, that's very expensive. So as our customers spend more time in the virtual domain, we're saying that they're shifting left, meaning that they're doing much more virtual design, prototyping up front, and with the intent to gain insights very quickly, improve designs, get them ideally right. So when they build it, they test it, it works. And so that is a key trend for us, and that is what we are really supporting with this design and test portfolio. And it's not just a collection of different products that we bring together. For example, when you think about compliance testing, which we have supported for a very long time with our test equipment, you can now also do compliance testing in the virtual domain, and the measurement IP that's applied in that virtual domain is the same as in the test domain. So we make sure there is consistency between design and test. So it really becomes a workflow all the way from design to test.
Well, I think what I hear from not only your users and your customers, but also from experts like Eric Bogatin and Steve Sandler and some of the familiar faces here at DesignCon, is they are always saying Keysight's the only one that can really take you end to end, right?
Indeed.
And I really think that engineers really appreciate being able to have that insight and saving the time and the resources and the headache.
Yes.
So I think that's an amazing offering, and it's light to sort of watch you unfold this and seeing the impact directly to engineers.
Thank you.
So, Stephen, I know you work with engineers all the time, and as I meet with engineers, because sometimes the flow of information is not easy because technology moves so fast. So how would you say, particularly in regards to signal integrity, like what are some myths or some commonly held myths that engineers hold that maybe make this world look overwhelming? Because it seems to me you're doing things to make it more accessible and easy to use, but I don't know that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think the way we approach signal integrity and power integrity and EMI and EMC, it just keeps expanding. It keeps getting more and more complicated. And one of the things that anybody who's a double E, they're a hardware designer and they're trying to get into this and try and build up their specialism, it can be quite daunting to pick up some of the tools. It's a big learning curve. In the past, we've talked about things like, well, there's education you can go to. Some of these Keysight education forums that we have. In the past, we've tried to show, it's like a primer to IBIS or IBIS AMI modeling, that kind of stuff, so that you can expand your way in. But actually, I think that there's a misconception that, the SI engineering is only for the SI specialists. A lot of time could be saved in the development cycle if only we could bring some of the early SI checks earlier in the design cycle.
Right.
So, most designers, they have a PCB layout engineer that's in the enterprise layout tool making the design, and then that needs to get design reviewed with a hardware engineer. And the trick is with a hardware engineer is that they're like visually inspecting things. So it's time consuming, and you're not really getting any feedback about whether or not those traces that were laid out are going to perform or not. So usually they'll just say, these are the signal nets that I'm going to then send to the SI engineer. But what actually you can do instead is there's tools out there nowadays where you can, it's kind of empowering, or let's say empowering the hardware engineer, or democratizing SI, where these hardware engineers can set up an automated test and it'll go and check the impedance of the traces per section. It'll give you S parameters, return loss, insertion loss, that kind of information. So that you can see that in a group of signals that should be the same, which are the ones that aren't. So that's something I think that is an area that's ripe for development. We'll see more being pushed down to the hardware engineer to check and verify what they've got before they send it to the SI specialist. And I think that that's an area where it can save a lot of efficiency for a lot of companies.
That really ties into other conversations. In this industry, you start having conversation and you start hearing these common themes. And one of the themes I've heard, which really seems to match sort of the story of Keysight, is the speeds are getting too fast, that we have to work collaboratively or have tools to cross those discipline barriers, or at least have that up and downstream awareness, which is why I came up with the ecosystem that we've all talked about, getting out of these silos for a lot of years. But what I really appreciate about Keysight is that you're functionally removing that, democratizing. And so I really appreciate that about Keysight. And it sounds like you're just continuing to do that and put more weight behind those tools. So
yes, indeed.
Well, so in fact we released a product just a couple of weeks ago in January. We called it Electrical Performance Scan. So if anybody's interested to check it out, then please go to keysight.com. But I think you have another podcast coming up in the future.
I do.
One of our excellent product managers who's going to be talking about that. So maybe
I'm
check
working
in for
with
later.
my old employer, Altium, who I near and dear to my heart, and so I'm glad to see you working with those enterprise, large installed base tools again to democratize and make that available to engineers. Well, gentlemen, I know you're busy, so thank you so much for stopping by. For our listeners, I want to put lots of notes for you in the show notes where you can click through. One thing I really appreciate about for Keysight is they provide excellent education resources to help empower you and to educate you as well, not only with their tools but with methodologies and keep you learning and growing. So thank you so much for that, and hope to see. I'll come over and see you at your booth soon, and so I'll come over.
Sounds good. You're welcome.
Thank you, Niels. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
This has been Judy with the Ecosystem Podcast. Thank you for joining us for this DesignCon 2023 on-site series.